Hello, everybody. Welcome into the High Noon Rant. I am Pugs Moran. We do this every Monday through Friday at high noon, 12 p.m. How you liking my voice? It's sick house. We've been talking about this for the last couple of days. We're in a sick house. We have a sick kid. Everybody is sick. I am sick. No fever. Had a fever last night. My fever was, oh God, I was like, here we go again, COVID. My fever was up to 101 for about an hour last night. And I know this because it then started to go down. It's right now in the 99 range, and I have all this stuff. The good news for me is that apparently I have a very good immune system because I'm fighting it, and I don't feel really bad. Like I don't feel so bad that I can't do this. So here we are, gathered together. The boy is in the other room. He's laying there watching TV. He's fine too. It's just we're so sick. Ugh. Sick of being sick, huh? Heard that before. Anyway, let's not let that ruin what we're going to have here. What is this? The High Noon Rant is a 2-hour, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes a little more than 2 hours, oftentimes less. Like today. Today it's going to be less than 2 hours. Not a whole lot less, but at 2 o'clock I have to record with my former partner, Kelly, for our podcast. We, excuse me, still very congested. We do the practical picks. Kelly picks the football games every week, and this week we weren't allowed to record at the time we typically do because, you know, the holiday schedule and whatnot. So we're recording today. We're recording that because the first NFL game doesn't happen until Saturday this week. So you can still get your degenerate gambles in, although not here in Texas. That's really more for the people back in Chicago who are listening. Texas, we can't gamble yet on our phones. You wait till that starts happening. I ain't gonna do it. Yeah, you are. And you know who else is gonna do it? Every 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid. My God, you have no idea. You have no idea how crazy. We don't have it here in Texas. We don't have legalized sports gambling on cell phones the way, you know, other places do. I can tell you it has changed Illinois. And, you know, every 17-year-old on the planet now can tell you the point spread. You know, well, Vegas is giving this meant. I mean, it's really troubling, especially for a guy like me who doesn't like to gamble. But it's a thing. Gambling has been mainstreamed, and it's coming. This is the reason why when you turn on something like, the Freak, the station that I like, you turn on the Freak in their off hours and you'll hear these gambling shows coming out of New York or Vegas or whatever. And it's all giving you like up to the minute point spreads and stuff. And if you're in Texas, you're probably wondering, well, what is the point of this? This is illegal. Well, it's not illegal everywhere. It's illegal here. Hey, Texans, how about tell me more about that freedom and liberty. But no, you can't gamble here. One of the things they won't let you do. How do we start talking about this? I don't know. Probably having something to do with something else. Anyway, this is a stream of consciousness conversation about all the hot topics, current events, trends, and really events that have shaped this day. We do it in 4 quarters. 4 quarters. If you look at the show like that, it's a nice little breakdown. First quarter, we call that erstwhile on this day. It's just this day in history. Why do we do that? Well, we look for rhythms. We look for patterns. We look for things that might help us, you know, go, okay, this is a day when this kind of shit happens. And, you know, just gives us a little bit of an edge. Again, a gambler's edge, a degenerate gambler's edge to be sure, but an edge nonetheless. Yesterday, we had an example of this. You guys think I'm kidding? Yeah, you know, you guys think that, he's just a crazy middle-aged narcissist screaming and streaming into the ether every day at noon. Yesterday, I said, look at this. We have a pattern on January the 4th of train crashes and train derailments. Like 3 of the biggest train derailments in rail history occurred yesterday. Hold on. Why am I popping so hot? I am popping way hot. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm going to bring that down. I just realized that. So yesterday we had a whole bunch of train derailment or train stories from history. Like the biggest one in Pakistani history happened in like the 1970s. And then there was the Maryland disaster where 2 trains collided in Maryland and DC in the 90s. And then there was like another one that happened. Oh, the Nordic one, the one in Sweden that killed like 300 people. All of those major train incidents occurred yesterday, on that day yesterday. So what did I say? I said, don't get on a train. don't get on a train today. And what happened? A big train derailment story in New York City. 2 subway trains smashed into each other yesterday. January 4th is not a day for train travel. That's all I tried to teach you. And if those people in New York City had heard this show, they may have thought twice. They might have jumped in an Uber on their daily commute. But they didn't. They got on it. Nobody died. Everything's fine. I know. Anyway, that's quarter 1. We call that erstwhile. Quarter 2 is birthdays. We go through a list of people who are celebrating birthdays, and we really just decide, are they cool or not? And that's entirely up to me. Then we do quarter 3, which is the deads. This is where we look at people who died on this day, and we determine whether or not they're in heaven or hell. It's fun. Then quarter 4 is, of course, all the hot topics, headlines, current events, all the stuff that's happening in the world. Now, how does this play out? I tell you what it is. I'm sorry, I'm congested, so I'm going to be taking deep old man breaths. It really is just all this phlegm and yuck. So here's how it works. I give you the headlines, the hot topics, the current events, whatever it is that people are talking about today, whatever it is that is shaping this edition of January the 5th, I'll tell you about it. I'll give you the headline. I'll tell you why it's trending. And then I'm going to give you a little hot take on it, probably 10 to 15 seconds worth. And we move on, unless it's something that I'm interested in. Then we'll dig down deep into it. There are a couple of stories today that we're going to dig down a little bit deep into. And that's the 4 quarters. All of this is done in a stream of consciousness style. It's just me blabbing, no breaks, no interruptions. I don't say, hey, we'll be right back after this look at traffic. No, none of that. Just a good hour and 45 minutes of me going blah, 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 blah. Now, I have been remiss in my duties as a friend, as a partner, as a fellow misfit. I've been remiss in my duties because I've got a lot going on here and I feel absolutely horrible about this. But are you guys subscribed to James Parker's YouTube channel? Are you? Because I need you to. Because James Parker's show comes on directly after this. You guys can go from this stream, consider this like your warm-up. You can go to this stream to James's new show on WBAP, which comes on at 2:00. You need to go over there. I'm sorry. I need to do more of sort of getting, us more accustomed to, now patronizing James and what he's doing. So if you like James, you can head over there and you can check him out. I'll remind you again at the end of the show. Although today at 2:00, I got to record something else. So I won't be in the chat room, but I'll pop into James. He's got a chat room going. He's doing like this whole kind of thing. So you can go over there and you can have some fun. All right. Oh, sorry. I'm going to make it through. I have the energy. It's just that I sound like, sound terrible. The hell is this? The hell is it? I told you my kid uses this studio when I'm not around. The hell? Oh, okay. I'm just randomly picking up stuff that was thrown on the ground. Oh, look, a box of Whoppers. All right, there you go. That's 14. That's what a 14-year-old does. He just throws things under the chair, and I found it with my foot. This show, before we jump into the first of the 4 quarters, this show runs on your gratuities. We talk about it a lot. We take your tips. If you are so inclined and you want to help us get through, now would be the time to tip, because we didn't make it again this month. This is the second month now in 2.5 years that we haven't made it. Now, I wasn't so shocked about this month because it's Christmas, and I always go, we always drop off on Christmas. But November was troubling, and then we headed into Christmas. So it's 2 months now where we didn't make our nut. Maybe that's an indicator that I don't know. Let's here. I do want to show you this though, because we do have an executive producer today, and I need to say thank you to our executive producers on today's show. It's Frank and Al. Who are the executive producers? Well, they're the guys that tipped the biggest on the previous day. If you tip the biggest today, then you get to be the executive producer for the next day's show. I look at it like this. The money that is tipped is what makes me do the next show. So today, Frankie and Al. Now, they didn't tip the same thing. I got to give Frankie credit. Frankie came with the biggest amount. So typically, Frankie would get this alone. Well, we didn't get many tips this week, and we didn't get many people. We got about 5 tips. We got about 5 of you. Actually, that's not true. Probably 6. And Frank has tipped every day. But Frank does that. Frank drops $2, $3. He tips the way I say. Treat me like I'm your bartender. You're going to saddle up to my bar. We're going to talk about some issues. when you leave, drop a little bit in. Frank always does that. $2. Today or yesterday, he tipped a significant amount. So thank you very much, Frank. I appreciate that. I think we're now $187 away from funding the next month of shows, or at least making it so that I can do the next month of shows. So we will be encouraging you folks to play along today. But that's it. I don't, I hate to evangelize about this stuff. I hate to pretend like, I'm going to save your soul. No, you either enjoy this and you're willing to help support it. I mean, the show needs to make very little per month. I mean, it's nobody's making any money here. You know the situation, but it is a good way for us to keep going and keep doing the good thing for me. This is like my therapy. So I am going to continue to do it in some way, shape, or form. Just, possibly not every day, and possibly not every day for 2 hours, and possibly not at this time. Monday, there will be a show, though, I promise you. I'll come and I'll do a show for Monday, and then we'll go from there. All right, that's enough of like the negative stuff. Let's get into today's high noon rant. What do you say, huh? All right, what do you say? The first thing that we do here is we'd like to tell you about today. What is today? Today is the 5th day of January, year of our Lord 2024. By the way, this is now what I consider to be the official beginning of the stream of consciousness. All that other stuff, that was all just like heavy lifting. That was just doing maintenance. But here we go. Are you ready? Unencumbered stream of consciousness. It is the High Noon Rant. I am Pugs Moran. It is the 5th day of January, year of our Lord 2024. Did you know? I do this every day. It's a little fun fact. January 5th is the 5th day of the year. Yeah, you probably knew that. That means there's 360 days remaining. So get those New Year's Eve plans started. See, it's kind of funny when I do it now because that's absurd to be thinking about New Year's Eve next year. But it's a reminder nonetheless. All right, let's get started. Erstwhile, on this day. This is where we talk about all the events that have helped shape our understanding of this day. Let's start. On this day, erstwhile, in 1912, the 6th All-Russian Conference of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. This is the Prague Party Conference. It opened. And in the course of the conference, some dude by the name of Vladimir Lenin and his supporters break from the rest of the party to form class, the Bolsheviks. That's right, the Bolshevik Party, which would lead to the transformation of Russia into the Soviet Union. That all started on this day. How did it end for you, boys? How did it? Not so well. On this day, erstwhile in 1914, the Ford Motor Company announces an 8-hour work day and a minimum wage of $5 in salary. Henry Ford took care of his people. He didn't like Jews. We know that. See, people are complicated. People are really complicated. Henry Ford, when you look at him through the hyper-focused lens of history, man of his time, didn't like things that weren't like him, which was, I guess, some kind of waspy Anglo-Saxon, just like the white guy, what a businessman, the people who made America. So that's what he was. That's what he liked. He didn't like people that were different. However, the same very complicated man did some things that absolutely changed production in this country and labor relations. He was not great. I mean, there were problems, but he was the guy that instituted the 8-hour workday. He said, you know what? I don't want my people working more than 8 hours a day. I want my people having families. I want my people, the Ford Motor Credit and the Ford Credit and the Ford Company towns. He took care of his people. Minimum wage, instituted minimum wage. This is what I'm going to pay you. And it was good at the time. It was crazy. It was like, what are you paying these people for? But also, Henry Ford, for all of his troubling views that were written down, in biographies and whatnot after him, Henry Ford employed a widely diverse workforce. He didn't have any I'm not hiring any of them. No. Henry Ford employed a lot of people. Henry Ford did some good things. He may not have been the greatest guy, but on this day, he did the 8-hour a day work week and instituted a minimum wage. He pioneered the idea of the production line, which changed the way factories manufacture things in this country. He was a great man. He had some, bad ideas towards Jews in particular, but other than that, like I say, people are complicated, man. Would you? Here's what you got to do when you're looking at. Okay, so he was. Do we cancel him? But are we canceling him before he creates the modern assembly line? Are we canceling him before he makes it the norm to have an 8-hour workday? Are we canceling him before he did that stuff? You know what I mean? Because he did stuff. He did stuff that is irrefutable. On this day, erstwhile in 1919, here's another thing that started on this day. The German Workers' Party formed on this day in 1990. Of course, they'd rebrand to the Nazi Party. And how'd that work out for you, boys? On this day, erstwhile in 1949, in his State of the Union address, United States President, give him hell, Harry Truman, unveils his Fair Deal program. The Fair Deal, Harry Truman, on this day, 1949. On this day in 1972, the United States President, Richard Nixon, announces something that was probably exciting at the time, but now we know was just a serious scale back. On this day in 72, Richard Nixon announced NASA's Space Shuttle program. The Space Shuttle program was announced by Nixon on this day. The Space Shuttle program was lame. It was basically just a pickup truck. They created a pickup. We were going to the moon. We were competing against the Russians to try and, advance humanity into the wherever. And then all of a sudden we just went, hey, how about a pickup truck that fixes satellites? And that's basically what we did for the next 30 years. We ain't been in the moon. We ain't been anywhere. And we're talking about Mars. All right, maybe that's it. I'm having problems with my microphone today. Moving on. Let's see here. That was on this day in 1972, the announcement of the Space Shuttle program. On this day in 1991, the Somali Civil War, the United States Embassy in Somalia and Mogadishu is evacuated via helicopter after days of outbreaks of violence in the capital of Mogadishu. Remember this? I remember this. Wasn't this the precursor to the whole Black Hawk Down thing? Or did Black Hawk Down happen like the day before this? I'm not sure. But this is all that stuff. I remember that video, man. The people just... It was very reminiscent of Vietnam. The helicopter taking people off the roof. Anyway, on this day in 1991. All right, folks, that'll do it. That's quarter one. Quarter one is in the books. Now it's time for Bonum Bonum Bonum. They say it's their birthday. Who are we to argue? I don't know. I'm not gonna find out where these people were born and then go to their county records office and make sure it's real. This is just what we know, and we go with it because we trust in institutions. Institutions like whatever results come up when you say, hey, Google, show me today's birthdays. Born on this day in 1914, George Reeves. George Reeves. Who was George Reeves? George Reeves was an actor. He was a director. He was Superman. That's right. He was the original Superman. I'm not talking about Christopher Reeves. I'm not confused. Yeah, there were two. There were two dudes who played Superman. The first Superman was George Reeves, and then years later they made a movie about Superman, and they cast the dude coincidentally named Christopher Reeves. Now, if you're a subscriber, as I am, into the belief and the mythology of the Hollywood clone factory, you know that that is not a coincidence. You know that that was just sloppy branding. George Reeves played the first Superman. He died very, very controversially. The official thing is that he killed himself. Although everybody in Hollywood who knew him was like, he didn't kill himself. Here's the story. George Reeves played Superman. He was very famous on TV, but he couldn't get any other acting work, and it started to frustrate him. He also may or may not have suffered from depression and alcoholism, which, is a wicked combination. It's part of the reason why I don't drink. I got the depression. I'm working on that. I don't need to compound it by being drunk every night at 10 o'clock. So George Reeves was having a party at his house in the Hollywood Hills. By the way, this whole story of George Reeves, Hollywoodland, I don't know if it's a 2005, maybe 2006, somewhere back then, Ben Affleck movie. Ben Affleck played George Reeves. Hollywoodland is about this. He's having a party in his living room. He dismisses himself from the party. He goes to his den where a shot rings out. The people at the party run in and find George Reeves dead on the floor, suicide open and shut. However, there are people at the party who said that George left and he was quickly followed by his girlfriend, Lemon, something Lemon. I don't know. She followed him out of the room. They were both missing. There was a gunshot. And then she came back in and said to somebody, allegedly, whatever happens, tell people I was here when the gunshot went off. So I don't know. And then all of his friends All of his friends are like, he wouldn't gonna kill himself. But isn't that what people of severely depressed people always say after they kill himself? They can't believe it because there's a degree of guilt in the friendship that maybe you could have done something. Maybe if you had paid closer attention to what they were going through. So instead of dealing with all of that emotionally, friends will typically just go, not possible for him to kill himself. Because if it were possible, that means you would have missed something. And that means you probably weren't as good a friend as you're pretending to be now in your mourning cycle. Oh, I loved him. You loved him, but were you paying attention? So a lot of people, and this is common, this isn't just back then, but a lot of people, when someone they love kills themselves, they, he didn't do it. It was an accidental overdose. Whatever. Anyway, fascinating story. George Reeves, born on this day in 1914. Also born on this day in 1923, Sam Phillips. American radio host and producer, he founded Sun Records, an instrumental part in the popularization of, well, something other than, standards music. He was one of the rock and roll guys. Born on this day in 1931. How about Robert Duvall? Oh my God. Robert Duvall draft. You're damn right. We're going to do a Robert Duvall draft here. Robert Duvall. My God. He's one of them. He's one of the big ones. He's, every so often we get one of these birthdays and we have to do a draft where we look at their entire filmography and we use, like the NFL draft. Like all of his films are just kids coming out of college. Which one are we taking first? Which one is the best kid coming out of college as far as the Robert Duvall draft goes? We do it in descending order. Number one is number one. It's the best. And we do a 5-round draft. Robert Duvall is one of them dudes. He's a Dustin Hoffman. He's a Robert De Niro. He's a Jack Nicholson. He's a Paul Newman. He's a dude who's got a filmography that is massive. So this, I will tell you, this draft, which by the way is a draft that I had done previously, probably done this draft twice now. Don't know if they line up the same. No idea. But on this day, here is how I see the Robert Duvall film draft. Although I do want to say this, I'm not necessarily, this is not a Robert Duvall film draft, because I remember when I was putting this together this morning, I thought this shouldn't be a film draft. This shouldn't be his best films because he's not a director. This should be his best characters, right? So this is Robert Duvall character draft from films. The first pick overall in the Robert Duvall character draft is not the obvious pick. You know why? The experts are all telling you to take his most well-known role, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because that character is fine, but that character is not Lieutenant Bill Kilgore from Apocalypse Now. That is the number one Robert Duvall character. I'll fight to the death on this hill. Come on. The cavalry, the helicopter cavalry commander who was obsessed with surfing and would deviate from his actual military plans in order to take out specific beaches in Vietnam that he'd heard were great for surfing. Come on. You smell that? The most iconic line from Apocalypse Now is Robert Duvall's Lieutenant Colonel Bill Kilgore. You smell that? I love the smell of napalm in the morning. That is his number one off the board draft pick. Lieutenant Bill Kilgore. How about this one? Number 2 in the Robert Duvall character draft from characters he's created for films. Number 2 is one that stayed with me. I saw this when I was like 10 years old, and I was like, okay, now that's made an impact on this kid. And of course, I'm talking about, is it Bull? Is it? Yeah, Bull. I wasn't sure if there was a title here, but Bull Meacham, the Great Santini. Oh my God. You guys remember that? Great Santini's like, hey, hey, mom's getting married. You got a new stepdad. And he's a drill sergeant. And he is like a total dick. Oh my God. The Great Santini, Bull Meacham, number 2 in the Robert Duvall character draft. Number 3, I'm going to go with Tom Hagen. You knew it was going to be there in Tom Hagen, although not as vibrant a character as, say, Bill Kilgore in Apocalypse Now or Meacham in The Great Santini. But Tom Hagen is an integral part of the Godfather series. Tom Hagen, the consigliere to Vito Corleone, and then later Michael, the adopted son of Vito Corleone. He can't be a made man because he's got Irish in him. He's an Irish German, so he can't be official in the Corleone family, but he is the son, he was adopted, and he is a lawyer, and he is the smartest one of them all, so he rose to consigliere, whatever it is. Tom Hagen from The Godfather. Number 3 in the Robert Duvall draft. Number 4, we're going way back. We're going to his first role. We're going to the role that he played, and people went, who's that guy? Who's that? That guy's good. That guy's a good actor. We're talking, of course, about 1962, 61, Boo Radley, To Kill a Mockingbird, an iconic film character. Robert Duvall, Boo Radley, To Kill a Mockingbird from 1963 is the 4th pick in the, is the chat not up? All right. Somebody just sent me a thing. I am so sorry, you guys. Boom. Oh, boo and hiss to me. I suck. Thank you, April. April, look at that producing. Sometimes Byron does it. Is Byron not in the chat room today? You know what? This is the problem. Every day I need to remind myself moving forward to, in the beginning, talk to the chat room, because it's there that I recognize, whether or not the chat room is engaged. Sorry. There you go, folks. All right. So running down again, the Robert Duvall American actor character portrayal draft. Number 1 is Bill Kilgore from Apocalypse Now. Number 2 is Bull Meacham from The Great Santini. Number 3 is Tom Hagen from The Godfather. Number 4 is Boo Radley from To Kill a Mockingbird. And number 5, and this was tough because there are so many. I am leaving characters that he won Oscars for off of this list because number 5, Pac-Man, Officer Hodges in Colors. Remember Colors? Robert Duvall and Sean Penn just driving around South Central as cops, getting into it. All kinds of mayhem. Pac-Man's coming. Pac-Man's coming. That's what they called him, Pac-Man, because he was out there gobbling people up. That was awesome. All right, so also we got some people got to come to the draft, right? So these were the top 5 picks. You got your Apocalypse Now surfing Colonel. You got the stepfather from Hell and Great Santini. You got Tom Hagen. You got Boo Radley. You got Pac-Man. Now there are other guys. These are so great. I don't know. You need a 10-round draft for Robert Duvall. You're going to get an 8th round draft, and in anybody else's year draft is going to be a first rounder, like Frank Burns from MASH. That's right. He was awesome as Frank Burns in MASH, the Robert Altman version. Of course, the film that created the spin-off TV series. He was the original Frank Burns, and he was an ass. I mean, Frank Burns in the TV show, there were elements of him that were lovable because you had to allow him into your living room every Monday, so he couldn't be a complete dick. Frank Burns in the movie MASH, as portrayed by Robert Duvall, was a total dick. How about this one? We're going to also invite Frank Hackett, the network executive from Network, the TV show Network. Petty Chayefsky's brilliant, prescient film about network television and where it was going. He wrote that in like 1972. And it is exactly what network TV would become. Frank Hackett, the network executive in Network. Max Mercy, the sports writer in The Natural, possibly the best sports movie ever made. Some say. I think it's the best baseball movie ever made. No, I don't really think that. That's programming that made me think that. I think it's maybe second or third. He played the sports writer who figured out the story of Roy Hobbs, whatever his name was. He was Max Mercy in The Natural. He was also Max Sledge in Tender Mercies, which I think he won an Oscar for. And Harry Hodge, of course, we're going to include him, Tom Cruise's pit mechanic in not Color of Money, Days of Thunder. All right, there you go. That concludes a Robert Duvall character draft on his birthday. When was he born? How old is he today? We got to keep him healthy. I looked at his filmography. He's got movies in the hopper. Like, he's got shit that's still coming out. So he's still active. 1931. So that's going to be 70. That's going to be 80, 90. It's going to be 95. Wait. Huh? What is he, 95 today? 93. I don't know. One of those two. He is getting up there. All right, moving on. Also born on this day in 1946, and it's not that I'm a misogynist, because this person certainly deserves a draft of their own, but we just came off an exhausting Robert Duvall draft, so I can't do one for the birthday girl, Diane Keaton. Diane Keaton can get a draft. Oh, yeah, she can get it. Let me tell you, 1970s Diane Keaton can get it. I almost called her Ally McBeal. Number 1 in her draft would, of course, be Annie Hall. I mean, the number 1. I mean, doesn't matter. Did she play anything else? Telling you. 1970s Diane Keaton can get it, boy. I'll tell you. All right, let's go. Moving on. Let's see. Also celebrating a birthday today. How about Clancy Brown? Clancy Brown. You guys know Clancy Brown? Google this dude. He's one of them That Guy actors. Clancy Brown, I first saw him in like 1980. He was in a film called Bad Boys, and not that one. Whenever people say, oh, I love Bad Boys, I always have to go, not that one. It's a different Bad Boys from the 1980s starring Sean Penn as a kid who got sent to like kids prison. It was a kids prison movie. And as a kid who was probably staring down a likelihood of spending a little time in kids prison at the time, it scared the hell out of me. So anyway, Sean Penn got sent to prison, kid prison. It was still bad. It was still really bad. And when he got there, he met a character named Viking Lovgren. Viking Lovgren was this big, giant white dude who was like in charge of like all of the punk kids. Now, he was also a kid. Viking Lovgren was a kid. He was just like the top dude. And Sean Penn had to fight Viking Lovgren. That was Clancy Brown. Now, why is that interesting? Because that was Clancy Brown as like a 19-year-old kid being a thug. Clancy Brown has consistently worked in major character roles over and over again throughout the decades. He is one of the most storied character actors in Hollywood of the last 40 years. So look at him now. You'll go, oh, I know that dude. Yeah. Did you know it was Viking Lovgren? Maybe not. That's how long he's been doing movies. He now plays old men. And I remember him when he was playing a young, tough thug. Now, he was probably 28, playing 18 back then, but still, he pulled it off. Born on this day in 1969, happy birthday to a troubled character, another complicated soul. Don't want to overturn too many rocks in this guy's history garden, because you're probably going to be shocked. Happy birthday, Marilyn Manson. Yeah, I know. He's kind of been canceled, right? Because it turns out Marilyn Manson did a whole bunch of stuff that anybody who, with half a brain, the first time they saw Marilyn Manson went, yeah, this guy's into that kind of stuff. I totally get it. But now everybody's pearl clutching about Marilyn Manson being a weirdo and a sexual deviant. Really? Really? Okay. You don't say. You just picking up on this now. No, it's because things get normalized. Marilyn Manson was like, oh, he's so freaky. And then people would be like, he's a demon monster from hell who does terrible things. And then everybody would go, no, he's just an artist. He's a weirdo. He's always been a weirdo. Happy birthday, Marilyn Manson. All right. Born on this day in 1969. Cool, though. Not cool. Like, he's not cool. He's definitely not cool. He's a weirdo. He's a total weirdo. Musically pretty cool. Got to admit. Marilyn Manson, dude. Ooh, beautiful people, dope show. Oh, God. Antichrist superstar. Oh, my God. He can do some music now. You know, he had some bangers. Moving on. Born on this day in 1975. Happy birthday to an icon. He's an icon now. He really is. He's like as A-list as it gets right now, and he can do whatever he wants in Hollywood right now. And we watched him matriculate through the system. We watched him start out in small roles as nothing and forgettable characters. Hell, we watched him in like indie films that only like 10 cool kids saw. And now we know him as Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper is about as big. Bradley Cooper is so powerful that he can make what is possibly the most boring film in Hollywood history and actually have people go, he's a genius. I'm talking about Maestro. It's a new Netflix movie where he plays somebody whose last name is Bernstein. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of famous people whose last name is Bernstein. I don't know if it's Elmer or Leonard or Bob. I don't know. Whatever. He plays one of those guys, a conductor. And it's, God, it is so self-indulgent. It's just so, nobody cares. Who cares? Make a movie about David Bowie. Don't make a movie about some guy who did the score to West Side Story. Who's going to go to that? Your grandma? Are you counting on me buying a ticket when I drive my grandma to the movies to see the biopic about the dude who scored West Side Story? Because I ain't going in. There's movie theaters now have bars. Grandma can go in and watch that. I'll sit at the bar and watch ESPN. I don't know why he's making that movie, but that's how powerful he is, that he can get Hollywood to go. All right. Because what's the Hollywood equation? One for them, one for me. So he does 2 Guardians of the Galaxies where he voices an anthropomorphic raccoon. And then he gets to do like the world's most boring movie. That's how it works. But guess what? We're also going to do a Bradley Cooper draft. Yeah, we are. Because I love Bradley Cooper. Aside from like the garbage, like this Maestro garbage. And it might be a wonderful film. It might be a wonderful film. I got like 25 minutes into it and I'm like, is this going to be this self-indulgent and really this focused in on like a story that I don't care about? I don't care about this story. If I want to learn this story, I'll go to Wikipedia. I will read it in Wikipedia. I don't need 3 hours of my life carved out. Here we go, though. Bradley Cooper draft, because I do think he's an absolute brilliant performer. Number one, it's not even close. It's my favorite movie that isn't called Dr. Strangelove. Okay. I have to watch this movie at least once a year. And once a year, I try and force my son to watch it. And he has seen enough of it now where I think he can put it together where he's seen the whole movie. But Silver Linings Playbook, Bradley Cooper, his performance in Silver Linings Playbook, Robert De Niro's performance in Silver Lining Playbook, Jennifer Lawrence's performance in such an incredible film. It's an incredible film if you've ever known anybody who has dealt with a mental illness, and the family tries to make it normal, like nothing to see here. And it's an incredible, incredible film. I get chills. I cry. It makes me laugh. It is just a magnificent film. Silver Linings Playbook. Number two in the Bradley Cooper draft, I'm going with a film that he made directly after Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle. I love American Hustle. It's the story of the ab scam. It's a true story. It's the story of the FBI. And if you know what ab scam is, look it up. Number three, Bradley Cooper. We're going with The Hangover. Why? Because those Hangover movies are pound for pound some of the funniest things put on film. They're just funny. If you need to look, you know what I'd like? I'd like it if he was in Hot Tub Time Machine, because I also think Hot Tub Time Machine is one of those movies that I can just put on and wherever it is and I'll just laugh. That's how I feel about The Hangover. Number four in the Bradley Cooper draft today. Multiple drafts today. I know. I apologize. How about A Star Is Born? A Star Is Born. He was good, man. He was good. Garage Door. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil it for you. I don't want to spoil a movie that's been made and remade 4 times now. The most recent version has been out for 5 years and everybody has talked about it, but I don't want to spoil it for you 5 people who are holding me and my opinions on A Star Is Born hostage, which is what Garage Door. That's all I'm going to say. Oh my God. Star Is Born is so good. It really is good. I've come around on that film. At first I was like, Dad, I didn't like it when it was Chris Christopherson and Barbara Streisand. I didn't like it when it was Judy Garland and whoever was in it with her. I don't know. Let's just say Victor Mature, because it's a name that popped into my head. I don't know if it's true. But yeah, The Star Is Born with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper was surprisingly good. I came around on that and I'm like, that's a good movie. Had a lot to do with the Garage Door, but honorable mention for Bradley Cooper. We're going to go with John Peters in Licorice Pizza. The reason that I don't Licorice Pizza from last year, the reason I don't give him this in his draft is because it was just like a cameo. It was just like, I'm going to do 2 scenes as 70s super producer John Peters, and he played him so funny. Like he was so dead on to what the reputation and image of John Peters was. So there you have it. That's your Bradley Cooper draft on today, his 25, 35, 45, 49th birthday. Let's just say that. I'm sick. I can't do math. Born on this day, also celebrating a birthday, January Jones, American actress. She was in Mad Men. Like everybody will be like, Mad Men is where you know her from. But nah, man, she was better in Last Man on Earth. I don't know if you remember Last Man on Earth, because she didn't have much to do in Mad Men. She was just a 50s housewife. And I know she emerged in later seasons, but if I'm being honest, I stopped watching Mad Men, so I never really saw the emergence of January Jones's character. She was funny on Last Man on Earth. Last Man on Earth was the Will Forte show that was on Fox, and the premise was that Will Forte, the world had ended, everybody was gone, everybody had vanished off the face of the earth, and it was just Will Forte. He was the last man on Earth. But of course, over the course of the show, he keeps running into new people, so he realizes he's not the last man on Earth, that there's probably like 5 of them, 5 people left, and they all come together, and January Jones is one of them, and she's very funny. She's very funny because she's like, there's 2 females left on Earth. Kristen Schaal, who is a voiceover actress and not what any Hollywood casting director would describe as glamorous or a leading woman. Her. and January Jones from Mad Men. So it's like Will Forte's like, all right, I got to repopulate. Which one am I going to marry? Right? He's got anyway, she's very funny in that. Happy birthday to January Jones. Born on this day in 1978. Born on this day in 1981. Deadmau 5. You kids, whatever. He's a club DJ who wears a Mickey Mouse helmet. That's who this guy is, and he's super rich and okay. Very good. That's it. Quarter 2 is in the books. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Then there's your birthdays. Wanna. Let's talk about the dead folks. That's what we're doing now. These are dead people. These are the people who've died. These are the people who've died. Let's run through a list. Let's open up their life's resume, and let's determine whether or not heaven or hell was their fate. Dead on this day in 1933, preemptively, because we got to do it. 1933, Calvin Coolidge, former president of the United States. He goes to hell because all politicians go to hell. Quickly recapping for those just joining us. All politicians go to hell. All actresses go to hell. And all football coaches, with the exception of some pro football coach, all college football and high school football coaches go to hell. Not youth football coaches. Some of them are, in it for the right reasons. Some of them for the wrong reasons. But some of them, so you can't just, but all college football coaches, they're going to hell. And this guy, Calvin Coolidge, president of the United States, he's a politician, he goes to hell. How about dead on this day in 1943? Let's open up this resume, because God knows it's never been really probed. George Washington Carver, dead on this day. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, George Washington, look, I hear white kid, white suburbs, liberal, progressive-leaning 1970s public education, right? So what do we all know about George Washington Carver? He invented peanut butter. He goes to heaven. That's it. It was like they threw us the one black guy who made something that we could understand. We understand peanut butter. So and also a black guy did something. Look, more black guys did more things. Okay. It's just that he was sort of the one that we were allowed to know about. And we weren't even really allowed to know about. This dude, George Washington Carver, did more than create peanut butter. He basically revolutionized the entire industry of agriculture in this country. But we never got further then. He invented peanut butter. One teacher, we actually made peanut butter. We did. We smashed peanuts and we made peanut butter. So that's how deep we went into learning about George Washington Carver. He's going to heaven because peanut butter. Dead on this day in 1994, he's going to hell. Another politician. Thomas Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House. Tip O'Neill famously went to war with Reagan. Oh, O'Neill and Reagan, they hate each other and they're at war, and Ronald Reagan and they were best friends. That's not a joke. That is not Tip O'Neill, who was the Democrat, liberal-leaning Speaker of the House during Ronald Reagan's conservative, Reaganomic era Republican presidency. They were buddies. They used to drink together in the White House. They'd sit there and they would watch, late night hosts tell jokes about them together. I mean, that was just something that cannot happen anymore. These were two men from opposing political parties, both the most powerful men in their respective parties. And when the fray was over, they recognized that they had a lot in common. They were both Irishmen. They both had that. They both enjoyed a drink. They both enjoyed a laugh. They enjoyed one another's company. And then in the morning, they went back to war over the sausage making. But they were able to make a distinction between that stuff and what real life is. We can't do that anymore. We don't do that anymore. So although I am putting Tip O'Neill in hell because he's a politician and all politicians go to hell, we should keep an open mind to the fact that, there was some positive things about Tip O'Neill in his life. He worked with Reagan and Reagan as well. Dead on this day in 1998, this guy we'll put in the hall. We'll put in heaven because we like this guy. Who didn't like Sonny Bono? Sonny Bono died on this day. Sonny Bono, little guy, big mustache, hippie-looking dude, bowl haircut. I always think of him wearing like this furry jacket and like some kind of psychedelic shirt standing next to his girlfriend, Cher. Or was she his wife? I don't know. Were they married? Did they get married back then? Sonny Bono, by the way. There are two ways to look at this, and I've heard this presented in different ways. Sonny Bono Sonny Bono either discovered Cher and decided that she could be a superstar. And he began working like behind the scenes as producer, as manager, as all of this stuff to really launch Cher because he believed in her talent. There's that aspect of it. But then there's other people who say, yeah, he did that, but then he just shoehorned himself into the act. like he didn't really have star appeal or anything like that, but Cher did. So I don't know. But Sonny Bono, he died. How did he die? Skiing, right? He ran into a tree while skiing. I don't know. I always liked them. I used to like Sonny and Cher, the TV show. When I think now about Sonny and Cher, like I've watched videos on YouTube and stuff whenever I get a little bit spun out. I'll put on like some Sonny and Cher clips from like the 19th and just I get calm. I'm like, okay, this is calm. Because no matter what was going on when I was a kid, and by the way, I had a wonderful life as a kid. I don't want there to be any, all of the problems that I have, these are all self-induced. These are all just me. My home life, like my childhood was amazing. Like whenever I tell my kid about my childhood, it's never like, when I was a kid, I went hungry 5 minutes. No. My childhood is always like wacky stories about me and my grandpa getting into trouble or how cool his grandma was. It's like my stories are always good. So, I didn't have, so that's my happy spot. I think old Sonny and Cher reruns are happy spots for me. All right, moving on. There you go. That is quarter 3. We have gone through quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3 on today's 4-quarter show. Now is the time where I like to say the rubber hits the road and we jump right into all of the things that are happening today. These are the hot topics. These are the current events, the headlines. Once again, I will remind you, the show's not making its budget, which means that who knows about the future of the show. We were just shy of $200 short by the end of the show today. So if you want to help the show out and help us get through, now would be the time. Appreciate you. Moving on, let's talk about what's happening in the world. Israel is happening. Israel is happening. As I like to say, there is a war. It's ugly. It's every day there is just horrible details about atrocities that are going on. And I have done my duty. And what is my duty in this respect? Tune it out. There's just too much. There's just too much. I can't. I just can't. Anyway, if you want to know more about Israel, just go ahead and Google it. Or just go to any other media source because there's a lot of people out there who are talking about it. And all those people are interesting and probably better suited to fill you in on what's going on. So there you go, Israel. Here's another thing that we're going to hear about the next couple of days. Winter storm. Oh my God, there's a winter storm. It's not a particularly bad one, but we're going to hear all about it because it's going to affect people from Washington to New York. Yeah, well, Boston, actually. Yeah. New York City itself, though, they're saying it's probably not going to snow in New York. New York and Long Island looks like it's going to be spared. And yet all the morning news shows are like, oh, bundle up, there's a storm coming. I'm like, great. You're doing news right now for people in Boston. That's it. What about the people in the other rest of the country? This always happens with media. They will amplify whatever is happening to them. If they're doing their shows in New York, if like the national stuff is all in New York, John Berman on CNN today, he's like, well, I had to leave for my Boston summer home early, whatever it was. There was some situation where he was being inconvenienced by the weather delays because he's from Boston but works in Washington. I don't know what it is, something like that. I'm like, oh, so now we're going to talk about this. Oh, so now we all have to be concerned because John Berman of CNN had to make alternative travel plans because there's a storm that's affecting about 1 million people out of 400 million in this country, but they're going to amplify it and they're going to make it a big deal. So there you go. Don't pay any attention to the stupid winter storm that's going to affect Boston and Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia. It's going to completely spare New York. All right, moving on. Jobs. The jobs numbers were released. And what do I always tell you about these jobs numbers, especially in a political year, an election year? Just disregard them. They don't mean anything. What do we care about the price of gas? What do we care about the price of baby food? What do we care about the price of milk? Don't hit me with these parsed jobs numbers and statistics, although they're saying they're good. it's not bad. Apparently, these numbers are not bad. Again, they don't mean anything. All they are statistics that we'll see in political ads coming up. The U.S. payroll increased by 216,000 in December. What does that mean? What does it mean? Because you know what it very well could mean? It could mean that more people took extra jobs because the jobs they have are just simply not making it. That's what that could mean. How many? Let's parse this down even further. How many of these new jobs are actually second jobs? How many of these new jobs are third jobs? So don't give me this shit and don't tell me that Biden's fixing everything. He very well may be, but the unfortunate truth about these kinds of presidential economic, the Biden economic doctrine, whatever these things are, we never know if they worked until like a year after the dude's out of office. That's when we know if they worked or not. Nobody appreciates or can understand what's happening in the moment. I can't. The experts can't. Everything is just a fluke until it becomes a trend, until it becomes the norm. And we don't know about that. We don't know about, we had a good month. Don't give me a good month. Show me a good 36 months. That's how we, the people, actually benefit from this. Student loans. There's big breaking news concerning student loans here in the country. What was it? Let me see. I'm going to read you this because I saw it popped up. It was like breaking. Federal agency. Okay, this comes out of a federal agency. I don't know which federal agency. Maybe CNBC could be a little bit more specific. Student loan company errors could pose serious risks to borrowers. Oh, that's a difficult one. Borrowers and the economy. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau outlined recent errors by student loan servicers, and the United States Department of Education announced that it would withhold payments to 3 companies. So here's what happened. Student loan debt was forgiven for about 3 years during the pandemic. It was one of the things that they said, okay, you know what? Just don't worry about paying your student loans for 3 years. Student loan payments resumed back in October. And so all of a sudden there were all these mass payments and all these new people are getting new bills. They're saying they owe this and they owe this. And these student loan companies are apparently, they're seeing some opportunity. They're seeing some opportunity to make an extra penny here, an extra nickel here. And it's all adding up. And the Department of Education, who basically fortifies all these loans, they said, hold on. Because remember, the payments started again in October after not being made for about 3 years. Today's actions make clear that the Biden-Harris administration will not give student loan servicers a free pass for poor performance and missteps that jeopardize borrowers. This was U.S. Secretary of Education. All right, again, this is not the place for these kinds of deep dives into these very important issues. If you want to hear more about that, go find it elsewhere. I'm just telling you what people are talking about. New York City, we talked about this. New York City subway crash yesterday. Nobody died. A bunch of people got hurt because of course they did. I'm on a New York City train and there's an incident. I'm going to the hospital. Yeah, call me an ambulance, whatever. I don't know what my plans were for that night. I'm spending it in the hospital. I'm getting all that pay documented because when New York decides that they're going to make good to all the people that they inconvenienced, I want to check. So like 122 people went to the hospital. Don't after this thing when you're being, when the investigators show up and they're, you've just been in a head-on train collision. Don't say, I'm fine. No, complain about a backache. I don't know. I've got a headache now. Something that, could be serious. Maybe an old injury. Oh my God. If you've got a serious old injury that you're perfectly recovered from and you find yourself in a New York subway accident, oh my God. The old injury. The old injury is back. And then you've got all kinds of stuff to take into court. Look at the surgeries he had in 1995. Get that money, honey. New York City subway crash. Here's the story. And it started from vandalism. It started because vandalism caused a train to have to be stopped on tracks and fixed by maintenance workers. At least, where's the story? Come on. I hate the pop-ups. Here we go. 24 taken to the hospital after a New York City subway train collided. Should have been 124. 24 injured and taken to the hospital after New York City subway train collides. 2 subway trains. They collide and they derail. Service disruptions are expected throughout the day on Friday. So here's what happened. At least 24 people were hurt and hundreds were evacuated after 2 subway trains collided in the Upper West Side on Thursday afternoon, causing both to derail. Remember now, this was yesterday when we went through the erstwhile on this day. I told you there's going to be a train accident today. Trains, because there was like a train accident in 1960. There was a train accident in like 1985. And there was another big train accident in like 2008. And I'm like, this is not a good day for train travel. Don't travel on trains. New York, they had two subway trains crashed into each other. It says a northbound 1 train with up to 500 passengers was pulling out of the 96th Street station shortly after 3 p.m. when it collided with another disabled number 1 train and both derailed. The disabled train was being worked on due to vandalism after someone went through the train pulling the emergency brake cords in the cars. So here's what happened. So somebody got on the train. If you're unfamiliar with trains, all the cars have this thing, and brake glides makes the train stop for any kind of an emergency and all that. So somebody went through the train and just broke them all and just pulled all the emergency brakes. So that train can't run. So maintenance now has to come in and reset all of those brakes in all of those cars. So that's what was happening when this other regularly scheduled commuter train pulled out of the the station, and slammed right into it. Nobody died. That's good. But there you have it. And I feel justified. I feel justified in pointing out yesterday that you shouldn't get on trains. All right, moving on. What else do we have here? How about this story about a teen swimmer out of California? Did you hear about this? I hate this story. I can't stand this story because this is just a teen kid who's just a swimmer. Okay, and this is not a trans story, so let's not get all bent out of shape. Just a teen kid. He's a promising young swimmer. He's a high school kid. So they got all these new rules. They got all of these new rules about youth sports and about how you got to behave and all that stuff. And you know the act of like slapping your teammate on the ass? You know that act? That age-old, good job, buddy, boom, and you give him a slap on the ass? Yeah, that's sexual aggressive behavior now. That'll get you, if you're promising you do that to someone. And that's kind of what's at the core of this absolutely absurd situation that is affecting this young swimmer. Now, again, it has nothing to do with trans or anything like that. It just has to do with over-officious adults. This is an absurd rule. This is an absurd interpretation of a very real problem, which would be sexual harassment, sexual assault, all those things occurring at the youth sport level. That's a very serious thing. This is an ridiculous interpretation of what that law is supposed to do or what those rules are supposed to prohibit. Teen's promising swimming career in limbo after he's accused of slapping teammate on the backside. First, who's the teammate that complained? How did this become something that happened in the blink of an eye in a locker room or on the sideline or wherever? I don't know what they call it in swimming. The ledge. How did this move from, and it occurred to me, how did it go from just being something so easily dismissible and forgettable and move onable about into something that is now one of the top trending stories on AP, the Associated Press? I thought it was in California. This is actually in Denver. Okay, this is outside of Denver. I'm sorry. The story that I was reading was filed Dateline Los Angeles, but it's not. Okay. The email. Let me read you this story so you can get a full understanding. The email addressed to the 13-year-old swimmer from the United States Center for Safe Sport. After that Olympic doctor molested all them gymnasts, all kinds of money, and all these colleges, they all started going, well, we're not going to let it happen again, and here we're going to donate money. And they created a business. Somebody profiteered off of the molested gymnast, and they created a company called Safe Sport. And Safe Sport's job now, funded by all these universities, Safe Sport's job now is to go around and make sure that there's absolutely nothing horrid happening to students ever, or gymnasts or kids or athletes, whatever. It's an overcorrection of what happened with the Michigan State Olympic gymnast scandal. It's an overcorrection. And this is a kid who's gotten caught up and gummed up in the works. So, of course, anyway, this Safe Sport organization, for whoever's in charge of Safe Sport, and I imagine it says how many people they got. It said there's like a lot of employees. So the guy who's in charge of it is probably making $250,000 a year. You think he wants to give up that gig? No. So he's got to find examples that justify the money in continuing the Safe Sport program. So you destroy 13-year-olds, and that's basically justification for his salary, I suppose. Again, it's important. It's important to stay diligent and make sure that what occurred at Michigan State and what has occurred at other places with youth sports doesn't happen. But that's going to be on us, the people in the community, not some bureaucratic entity that is well funded by a bunch of wealthy, guilty people who are like, we should have done more here. That's nonsense. All that does is now create a profit center. And all that does for the people who work there is turn them into profiteers. Safe sport. They got to find something. Otherwise, what's their point? Let's see. Between approximately 2019 and 2022, this is the letter he received from Safe Sport. Between approximately 2019 and 2022, you allegedly engaged in a pattern of behavior which constitutes sexual misconduct. That was in April of 2022 when he received this letter from Safe Sports. It took 3 months for the 8th grader to learn what the accusations were. So he just got a letter that says you can't swim anymore on your team because we're investigating you for a pattern of sexual harassment. And then 3 months later was when he finally found out what he was being accused of. An 8th grader. This is a kid. And he's a swimmer. And by the way, can I just say, can I engage in some stereotypes? Swimmers are almost always good kids. Swimmers are, the kids who swim, they tend to come from they tend to have pools of their own, which I don't know. They're not latchkey kids. They're not troublemakers. They're not looking to get into troubles. All the swimmers that I went to high school with, they were all good kids. Anecdotal, I know. I'm just saying. That was in April 2022. It took 3 months for the 8th grader to learn exactly what the accusations were. A claim that he had slapped another teammate on the butt in a locker room 10 months earlier is what drew the letter. More than 20 months later, the case remains open, even after local police in the town 40 miles north of Denver investigated and dismissed it within days. Now, 16 and a high school sophomore, the teen's promising swimming career has been plunged into uncertainty by the temporary sanctions imposed by Safe Sport. The Safe Sports Center was established in 2017 to investigate and punish abuse in Olympic sports in the aftermath of the Larry Nassar gymnastics molestation cases. The center's mandate extends well beyond Olympic sport. However, reaching into the grassroots level of more than a dozen other sports. The teen swimmers situation illustrates the impact of that broad authority as its overtaxed investigative team takes on cases that often don't involve elite athletes. The teen's mom says that most of the family's questions to Safe Sport have taken days or weeks to be answered. Many of the responses, she said, are the equivalent of a shrug. They just don't know, or they say they'll get back to us. Meanwhile, this kid's college career is in jeopardy because apparently he's good enough to probably get college swim scholarships, but he's not allowed to participate because, again, 3 years ago in a locker room, he slapped a teammate on the butt, and now he's considered a sexual predator. That's the world we live in. Poor kid. Anyway, moving on. See, look at that. A youth swimming controversy story that does not involve a trans athlete. Progress. The wrong kind of progress, but progress nonetheless. Perry High School in Iowa, we should talk about this. We opened the show yesterday with story of the school shooting that occurred in Perry, Iowa at Perry High School. One dead, one kid is dead, a sixth grader just walking down the hallway at the wrong time. Got killed by this idiot who apparently put a TikTok out. A TikTok image of him, I guess, with a duffel bag. And it said something like, it's happening now, or something cryptic. Something that probably wasn't cryptic in the moment, but now, given what he ended up doing. Showed up at school at 7:30 and just started shooting people. Shot a principal shot. There are 4 other people who I believe are still in the hospital. Hey, here you go. First school shooting of 2024 occurred on the 4th. Look at that. We made it 4 whole days. All right. What else do we have here? like I said, we're going to have to wrap this show up a little bit earlier than usual today because I've got some recording that I got to do. But I want to remind you all, maybe I'll find this out before we go. We got to jump all over. We got to switch over to James Parker, who's now on 93.3 WBAP, 93.3 over there at 2:00. So typically, if you listen to me, maybe you guys can go over there and help him participate in his chat room. Moving on, Britney Spears is trending. Britney Spears is trending today because Britney is telling people that she is never going to record again. Okay, whatever. What about your hits, though? Can we trot you out for the next 30 years to, like, Kaboom Town and, like, Frisco Fest? You'll be out. She's too big for that. She will never do that. 20 years from now, she might do that. 20 years, if she does absolutely nothing, she might do that. But even now, Britney Spears is still, if Britney Spears said, I'm going on tour, y'all, she could probably do tours. She could probably do arenas with how crazy she is. People would go to that. Oh my God, you see how sloppy she was? She was falling down. We'd go to that. We'd see that. Britney Spears says, I'll never return to the music industry. Don't threaten her with a good time. Britney Spears has said she will never return to the music industry after rumors she was planning a return to the studio surfaced last week. The pop star was responding to claims in U.S. media that she was lining up songwriters for a 10th studio album. She put out on Instagram, just so we're clear, most of the news is trash. They keep saying that I'm turning to random people to do a new album. I will never return to the music industry. All right. There you have it, Britney. Sad news to report here. Our executive producer, Frank Smith, he put this on my radar earlier today. I would have found it, but thank you, Frank. Frank sent it to me first. Appreciate you doing a little bit of producing. Hutch, that's right, David Soul. Hutch from Starsky and Hutch is dead. How sad. Where did Hutch go? Heaven or hell? I don't know. I don't think I know enough about David Soul. I think his partner, Paul Michael Glazier. I think Paul Michael Glazier is probably going to go to heaven. He was married to Elizabeth Glazier, who got 8. Oh my God, Starsky's story is so sad. Paul Michael Glazier, you've probably heard, Hollywood, the Elizabeth Glazier Foundation. Well, that's Paul Michael Glazier's wife. That was Starsky from Starsky and Hutch. His kid and his wife, I don't know. I think they all got AIDS. I think they all got AIDS and died from a blood transfusion or something. Just an absolutely horrible, horrible thing that he went through. And so we'll put him, Starsky's alive though, I think. So we're not going to rush him into the afterlife. But just so he knows, he's probably going to go to heaven. He's been through a lot. Hutch, David Soul. Don't know much about David Soul. Don't know much about Hutch. Other than I watched every episode of Starsky and Hutch because it was like my favorite show, but he didn't do anything after that. He was in Salem's Lot, made for TV movie, Salem's Lot. He was in that, but that's it. I think he was also in the remake. Wasn't he in the remake of Starsky and Hutch? Didn't Paul Michael Glazier and David Soul, didn't they re-team up for a cameo in the Owen Wilson, Ben Stiller, Starsky and Hutch? That's a funny movie. That is a funny movie. I don't care. You shut up. There's a lot of funny movies from that time period that maybe in the moment I wasn't willing to admit they're funny, but that's a funny movie. David Soul was an actor. He played Hutch. He was blonde. Starsky was completely different. He had dark hair. That was Hollywood casting in the 70s. Well, how about what about a minority partner? Nah. As far as we're willing to go is we're going to make Starsky look like he could possibly have some Hispanic in him, but we're going to give him a name like Starsky that makes people go, oh no, he's just a Polak. So they're Starsky. David Soul also had songs. See, this is the stream. This is me just riffing on David Soul. He also had songs. He had Don't Give Up on Us, Baby. He was a singer. I remember that was always fun. That was always fun because he was big on Starsky and Hutch, and then he went into a recording studio to capitalize how popular he was on Starsky and Hutch, and he made an album, and that album became a hit. It's like, that was a big song. Don't give up on us, baby. I can't sing any more of it. Don't know any more of it. I remember that. So he was a big singer, and then he didn't follow that up with anything. kind of add him to the list of the Don Johnsons. What was Don Johnson's song? Don Johnson had a song, didn't he? Bruce Willis had a bunch of songs. I think Patrick Swayze had a song. Anyway, David Soul. David Soul was pretty old, and now he's dead, and he lived in England. He moved, maybe this is why we never heard about him here. He moved to England like years and years ago. I don't think he's an English guy. I think he just maybe married an English chick. And he moved to England, and then he became a British citizen, and he spent like 30 years working on the stage in the West End in England. That's what he did. He's been like a 30-year West End stage actor. So there you have it. David Soul is dead. Starsky. Cancer, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. All right, what else do we have here trending? A couple other things that are trending today that we could talk about. Trevor Bauer, Major League free agent pitcher. Trevor Bauer, he's making the runs. He's trying to do a little bit of brand reclamation, which, his brand was shit before all the really troubling stuff came out. He was a jerk. Everybody hated Trevor Bauer. He was a jerk. He was a great pitcher, strong pitcher. He was terrific online too. For baseball nerds, he used to have a Twitter handle called Bauer Outage, where he would break down pitching of other pitchers and himself. It was very interesting if you like the minutiae of that. But he's an incredibly arrogant, incredibly cocky dude, and always has been. He's never been welcome in any locker room he's been in, going all the way back to UCLA. He and Garrett Cole were on the same college pitching staff. And guess who the odd man out was? Trevor Bauer. It was like Trevor Bauer was the one that everybody else on that team was like, you're a dick. And anyway, so they've always had a rivalry. But even going back there, he's a problem in Cleveland. He was a problem in Cincinnati. And then, of course, we know that he was a problem in Tampa, where he was the number 2. I think Cole and Bauer went 1-2 in the draft that year. What would that have been? Like 2012, 2011, 2010, somewhere in there. So he gets drafted by Tampa, and they deal him like within a year because he can't get along, because he's a troubled guy, because he's kind of a jerk. Goes to Cleveland, then Cincinnati, then, of course, Los Angeles, where all of these sexual assault charges get thrown on him. Major League Baseball suspends him pending investigation. There's all of this stuff. There's a court case. There's a civil trial. Anyway, you can read all the details about what he did or what he's accused of doing and what a court said that not enough evidence to prove that he did. So he's gone through all of that. And now he wants to get back into baseball. So he's doing sort of a character reclamation, and he went on Fox News and he talked about how he was bullied as a child, which is all true. But this is not the first time that he has leaned on his awkwardness as a child. He was apparently, Trevor Bauer as a kid was apparently mercilessly bullied at every level of school because, as he says, he was only interested in one thing, and that was baseball. He was like a baseball nerd. I don't know if I believe that, especially since from a very early age, he was dominating as an athlete. And just thinking back to my own time as a child in school, I don't believe you could be a dominant athlete in, say, the 6th grade, the best football player, the best baseball player. I don't believe you can be that and also be the victim of bullying. Now, certainly there are probably a couple of exceptions, but it just seems from my life that dude is always fairly popular, that dude is always the first picked in gym class, that dude isn't somebody that people are like, hey, he's great for our team, but let's pick on him in the hall. That doesn't seem to make sense. But he's been leaning into this bullying thing for a long time. Here's what others have said about him, though. One of his UCLA teammates years ago said that he's only bullied because he brings it on himself, because I think that he's maybe on the spectrum a little. I think that maybe he's socially awkward. I think that maybe he doesn't know how to talk to people and doesn't know how to relate to people. None of those things, by the way, mean that he has done what he's accused of doing. I think he's probably done some things. I think baseball players and young men with all that power and all that much acclaim, and he's got a claim as a Cy Young winner, may have done some things. I don't know. Anyway, the question is, do you want him on your team? His suspension was like 194 games. It was supposed to be 300 games, but then on appeal, they shortened it to 190. So he's ready to come back to play baseball. He's a good pitcher. He's still young. He's just 2020 Cy Young Award winner. Had 100 million, 180 million, some ridiculous contract with the Dodgers, his last contract. Spent last season pitching in Japan for like the Bay Stars or something weird like that. I don't know. But this is always where it gets to be fun. Because, this is where you start to see different fan bases. So you get to know like what their deal is. Like, okay, so you have any problem with this? I can say this. The Chicago White Sox, they picked up Mike Clevenger last year. Mike Clevenger is also accused of doing a whole bunch of terrible things to women. The White Sox picked up Mike Clevenger last year, and the White Sox fans were all like, that guy sucks. That guy's an a-hole. He shouldn't be on our team. That's not a good person. That's not the energy that we want in our locker room. Now, it also turned out that he wasn't a good pitcher. So the funny thing about fan bases are, if Mike Clevenger had been winning, 22 games last year, would they still be like, he's a bad influence? People are unprincipled when it comes to their sports teams. People suddenly, they're like, well, how many women could he have raped? It's like, that's kind of scary. I saw it in Chicago with Patrick Kane. I saw people who were like super liberal, progressive. Women need to be heard. I saw people who were like that, who were also big hockey fans. That when Patrick Kane was accused of rape, they were like, these women need to be put in check. These women can't just accuse. And I'm like, really? So you don't think there's any truth to this? You don't think that maybe Patrick Kane, the guy who's been in trouble time and time again for playing grab ass, you don't think that maybe this is true? You're just going to now take up for him and his cause because what? He's really good and you're a Blackhawks fan? I mean, I didn't follow that story all that close at the time, but I do remember having that feeling. Like people who were defending Patrick Kane, I'm like, you're only defending him because you're a Blackhawks fan. And this is going to hurt the team if he's a rapist. But then when it's anybody else's, that guy's a disgrace to the sport and he should be. All right. We're just not. We lack principles when it comes to our sports. We lack principles in general. I mean, I think that humans, a modern American, we have no principles. I had a conversation with somebody this morning. And they just so effortlessly threw something out. I talked to a lot of people this morning. So if one of the people who was listening, they just effortlessly threw something out. And I just made the mental note in my head, oh my God, this is a dishonorable individual. If that person is just so casually going to talk, oh boy, no principles on this guy or girl. Don't have to know. Anyway, that's what Trevor Bauer's doing. He went on Fox News to let everybody know that he's a good dude now. And they let him talk, and we'll see. I don't know. All right, Trevor Bauer back in the news. The last thing that I want to do here today, we're going to wrap this show up here in the next few minutes. I have been hearing about this thing now for a couple of days. Yesterday, after we did the show, I finally went and looked at it. I'd seen clips and I was like, whoa, what the hell? But if I'm being honest, this individual is not somebody that I'm all that familiar with. I'm familiar with him because he's famous, but not a fan, not a hater either, just unfamiliar. But I know they're famous. There's a lot of people that are famous. There's like dudes in like thrash metal who are like super famous who I've heard of, but I'm not like, not familiar with or whatever. Hip hop too. Like half the people my son idolizes, I'm like, yeah, I don't know who that is. I've heard the name before, but I have no idea. So I'm talking about Cat Williams. Now this Cat Williams interview, holy balls, you guys. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody, this is here's the story. So who is it? Shannon Sharpe? Yeah, Shay. So Shannon Sharpe, who is surprisingly good at this. I like to look at my former athletes and be like, they're just a big dumb athlete. Shannon Sharpe has this digital show that he does called Club Shay Shay. Get it? Shannon Sharpe seems to be tied in with his cognac brand. I think he's got a cognac brand or something. I don't know what it is. I've never seen it before. I had heard of it before, but I'm like, Shannon, of all the podcasts and digital content that I could watch, you think I'm going to tune into something that Shannon Sharpe is doing? I mean, really, not that there's anything against Shannon Sharpe. There's just nothing overwhelmingly exciting about the prospect of watching Shannon Sharpe interview somebody. I don't care. Turns out he's good. Turns out I was wrong. Turns out he's really good. It turns out that he's got some really interesting things out there. So the other day, Club Shay Shay sits down with Cat Williams. Cat Williams is a comedian. He's one of the biggest comedians. He's super successful. He's got a lot of money. He's done a lot of things. And I don't think I can name one thing that he's ever done other than Friday After Next, or maybe one of those. Cat Williams did a style of comedy that I would watch him and I would hear one joke and I'd go, yeah, no. It just wasn't, don't like the style. Didn't like the style. But I will tell you this. Cat Williams sat down with Shannon Sharpe for this episode of Shay Shay and gave what has to be the greatest interview I have ever heard. Man, there is something to be said about the freedom that fuck you money affords one. You know what fuck you money is? Fuck you is, I always tell you about how you got to get your bag, right? That's what we need to be working for. Don't be like Elon Musk and be chasing dreams of, $1 trillion bank account. Don't find out what your bag is. Find out how much is going to make you happy and take care of you and work your ass off to get that. Get your bag. And then stop and then enjoy life with your bag. Stop it. One of the things that goes into my bag is when I have my bag, will I be able to tell anybody for any reason to just fuck you, right? And walk away. I'm not chasing millions more. So if I'm not comfortable with this deal or I don't like what you're offering me, I am comfortable to just say, fuck you. That's fuck you money. Because you still got enough money. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change. It might be nice if it worked out, but you know what? Fuck you. I'm not going to let you take advantage of me. Cat Williams has that. And he went on the Club Shay Shay. Specifically, it seems, to answer things that were said on previous episodes of Club Shay Shay by other, primarily black comedians. So Club Shay Shay, Shannon Sharpe's show, he has interviewed everybody from Cedric the Entertainer to Steve Harvey to Ricky Smiley to all of these people. He said all of these people on. Cat Williams went and watched all of these interviews. And then when it was Cat Williams' turn in the seat, he sat there and basically had a list of shit that he wanted to counter. Shit that, not even stuff that necessarily had to do with him, just stuff that he heard these people say, like stories that they told. He's like, let me tell you something. That story he told, total lie. Here's the truth. You guys, it was amazing. It was amazing the way Cat Williams went after everybody. Not everybody. He had good things to say about people. There was particularly a wonderful little soliloquy that he went on about Bernie Mac, about what an amazing man Bernie Mac was and how Bernie Mac is the greatest comedian of all time. And I don't care if you're Kevin Hart or Cedric the Entertainer. None of you guys can even come close to what he did. So it was very nice. But I want to play some of these for you. And if you have an opportunity and you want to hear something that is wheels off nuts, go to YouTube or go to wherever you get your podcasts and find this Club Shay Shay interview. You've all probably already heard about it because everybody's talking about it. But I wanted to watch some of it with you. I thought that we could pull up a couple of these clips. I don't know if Cat Williams I don't think he's drunk because he's pretty articulate. I'm not hearing slurs that would suggest that he's drunk, like that. No, he's crisp. He's bang, 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 and he's unfiltered. He is unfiltered. He's got opinions on everybody. And he is taking down people catching strays left and right. It's hysterical. It's one of the best interviews that I've ever heard. Okay, so let's start off here. Let's see. What's the first one that we want to do? Cat Williams. Here, you know what? Let's just listen to this. I'm sure that it doesn't matter. Okay, so this is apparently about. Okay, yeah, I'll explain it to you. So one of the recurring themes in this interview with Cat Williams and Shannon Sharpe, one of the recurring themes is Cat Williams and the roles that he plays, and how they're all to some degree dignified. They're all to some degree a representation of a black man that is not a victim or is not whatever, right? So he has been going on in this interview talking about, they want to put a black man in a dress. He goes, look at Medea. Look at Steve Harvey. Look at every black man being in a dress. Look at Martin Lawrence. Black man in a dress is funny. You got to emasculate the black. I mean, this is what he's going off on. So this is him here talking about his dealings with Martin Lawrence. Okay. Martin Lawrence in a movie that was proposed for the two of them. This is Cat Williams from Club Shay Shay.
Put me in my first dress. When he had to go on his hiatus, he tell me...
So Martin Lawrence put me in my first dress.
Martin tried to put me in my first dress. When he had to go on his hiatus, he tell me, Cat, when I come back, I need you. You my young partner, you my brother in comedy. When I come back, just promise me that my next movie, it'll be me and you. We gonna do it together. We gonna do some buddy cop shit. I said, Martin, you got my motherfucking word, my nigga. Go do what you got to do. When you come back, I'm in your movie. Don't trip. I don't need to see the script or nothing. You know, we get in that office and this fool pull out Big Mama's House 2. I almost died. And I got to read this script from all these good white people, where this nigga want me to get in a dress with him. And I'm literally saying to everybody, why is he in a dress again? You already played the old lady as an FBI agent. We can play anything now. We can be playing a dog catcher this time. Why do we need to be in a dress? And I get so mad, I say, you don't want me. You want Brandon T. Jackson. And that's who they went and got. Twice I said it, they went and got him. Just like I'm telling you, I had that other dude's work. I had all of it. All I did was say, I want to punch it up so it's not offensive to real niggas. And that's how I got in this position.
I sure hope I have Club Shay Shay after this air.
It's gonna be in a dimension it's never been.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
The greatest thing floating in 2024. Mark the words. No way. In a whole different realm of business. Oprah coming next. Once I establish this as a place of truth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Watch. God's people ain't that few.
All right, that's just him talking about the Martin Lawrence thing. Here is a little bit more. This is where he's going off on the Steve Harveys, the Ricky Smileys, the Kevin Harts. This is we're gonna let this one play for a while, and I'll stop it. And I may even jump forward on a couple of these, but this is this is. I mean, he talks about everybody. He just.
Steve that went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had. Now,
all right, he's talking about Steve Harvey. He's talking about Steve Harvey seeing what Mark Curry was doing, hanging with Mr. Cooper, Mark Curry. Steve Harvey seeing that and then basically ripping him off. Actually, there's crazy accusations here.
The same Steve that went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had. Now Steve got a sitcom where he the principal and he wear a suit and then he gets this high top fade, making all black men think he got the best lineup in the business, and it's a man unit. Then you ask it, why you not a movie star? I didn't want to be a movie star. This the same Negro that hated on Bernie with this same thing. I didn't want to be a movie star. No, you couldn't be a movie star. There are 30,000 new scripts in Hollywood every year. Not one of them asks for a country bumpkin black dude that can't talk good old baby and look like Mr. Potato Head. There ain't none. You would have to have a...
All right. Holy shit. That's Cat Williams on Steve Harvey. you didn't want to be a movie star. You couldn't be a movie star. I mean, this whole interview is just filled with that. Let's continue. Let's keep going.
Range. I played a lot of characters, 60 movie roles. I'm not playing Cat Williams in there.
I don't know, Cat. We might not let you drink anymore the way you. I mean, we ain't even got.
I'm not fueled by alcohol. I've had a sip, less than you. This is like Steve Harvey telling people he used to be homeless. That's my story. That's not his story. Steve Harvey wasn't never homeless. When Mark Curry was touring with him 25 years ago, he was making $3,000 a show in cash and doing 5 shows a week. They just tell the stories. Thanks to my wife, I'm where I am. You said that about the first wife. You forget that? You told us it was her. Then you went and married somebody else that think like a man. Like, what are you talking about? They think they can rewrite history. Guy Torrey did a beautiful special about the Comedy Store and Fat Tuesday, where he said that Steve and Cedric and Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish came through there and made... All lies. Steve and Cedric never performed at the Comedy Store at all. Tiffany was only seen at the Laugh Factory. In 15 years in Hollywood, no one in Hollywood has a memory of going to a sold-out Kevin Hart show. They pay you to not talk about things they don't want you to talk about. They tell you that themselves. I can't do that because Steve told you that he stopped doing stand-up because he had 7 TV shows. The only problem is when he stopped stand-up, he didn't have those 7 TV shows. He stopped stand-up because he got in a comedy battle called the Championship of Stand-Up Comedy with one Cat Williams in Detroit in front of 10,000 people and lost because Cat Williams said he was actually bald and that was a wig. And I went in, and that's why he couldn't do stand-up anymore. Imagine him coming to tell you another story where he got so big and it was Bernie and them's fault because they wanted to be movie stars.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best
there
way to
is a whole lot more to that. If you're interested in watching it, it's like 2 hours plus of just Cat Williams unloading on everybody in Hollywood. Black comedians, white comedians, actors, the Hollywood system, unfiltered. The man obviously has his bag and he has reached the FU money portion of the bag. Adam says something interesting, that maybe he's high or maybe he's on drugs. I don't know. There is something. I think there's some, I mean, I don't know. There's something. He doesn't seem drunk. Like, he does not seem drunk. He doesn't seem like, I'm not seeing the effects. I am seeing something though. That could very easily be just a manic personality who is spinning. That was my first thought. He said that he doesn't do any hard drugs that, are more than weed, I guess. He admitted to that. But he also has a history of outrageous behavior, of getting himself in situations where, the police have to be called. The dude has been arrested 20 times, Cat Williams. That's not the real number. What I mean is he's been arrested a lot for mayhem things. It's not like he was arrested for beating up a woman. It's not like he was arrested for waving a pistol in traffic. It's not like he was he's arrested for like weird things that make me think that maybe he's bipolar. Maybe, do you know his story? I learned Cat Williams' story because I didn't know anything about him. What an insane story. 13 years old. At 13 years old, he emancipates himself legally from his family in Cleveland, Ohio. Gets on a bus, or actually, no, he said he went to a truck stop and he rode with truckers. At 13 years old, moved to Miami, emancipated himself from his parents, moved to Miami at 13 years old and lived on the streets in Miami where he learned how to be a street performer and do all of these things. And then he started doing stand-up comedy because there was cash to be, handed out if you won the night, these contests, these little open mic things. It's an amazing story. I mean, the dude literally did everything from the ground up. And I think he might be crazy. I think he might be crazy, and a crazy person with no shits to give. You put him on a show like that and it's going to be great. So yeah, if you're looking for something interesting to listen to, you got a long car ride or something, you want to hear everything about everybody from, honestly, the only people that he said good things about, he talked about, he talked a lot about the way Steve Harvey treated Bernie Mac. He talked about how Steve Harvey and his little shadow, who he called Cedric the Entertainer, who he unloads on Cedric the Entertainer like nobody's business. He doesn't know who Cedric. He's like, they call him the Entertainer because originally he was brought out to sing and dance and tell a couple of jokes. That's what he was. That's what Steve Harvey wanted him to be. He didn't want another guy who was just going to be a comedian to compete with the other comedians on the bill. He needed somebody to be more of an MC who could do a little soft shoe and sing a little song, an old time classic entertainer. That's why the name is Cedric the Entertainer. But as Cat points out in the thing, he goes, very early on, they realized that he can neither sing nor dance, and that the only thing that he can do is tell other people's jokes. He unloads on him. He unloads on Cedric the Entertainer. And he talks about how all of those guys turned on Bernie Mac when Bernie Mac left their tour to go be in Ocean's 11. Bernie Mac had an opportunity to go do films, and they were jealous. Specifically, I guess Steve Harvey was jealous because Steve Harvey saw himself as the star of that whole tour, that whole thing. And now how can the guy who's second or third on the bill, how can that guy be getting to work with, George Clooney and Brad Pitt? How has that guy now been elevated to that level? So they turned on him. They apparently turned on him. And that was the other thing that Cat Williams was talking about in regard to Steve Harvey, where he said Steve Harvey says that he didn't want to be a movie star. It's like, no, he wanted to be a movie star. He couldn't be a movie star. He also, Cat Williams, has some really, really explosive things to say about Jonathan Major. The whole Jonathan Major situation. He talks about Joe Rogan. He talked about Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan's immediate response, to Joe Rogan's credit, was to put out a tweet that said, hey, Cat, I love you. I'm a fan. I want you on my show. Come be on my show. So I think we're going to have a Joe Rogan Cat Williams interview as a follow-up to this. And I think that'll be even better because I do believe that Joe Rogan is probably a better interviewer for this subject matter than Shannon Sharp. I don't think Shannon Sharp is really looking to make waves in comedy or knows very much about the backstory of what Cat's going to be presenting. Joe Rogan does. Like, Joe Rogan will know all of these people and be like, yeah. So that'll be good. All right, there you have it. That's everything that you need to know about today. Hold on, I just got a text here from Kelly. Let's see what Kelly is. That ain't good. All right. I'm supposed to be cutting the show short at 2:00 so that I can do a thing with. I'm running late. I fell asleep while taking a break. All right. That's all right. So I'm off with Kelly. Boop, boop. So now I'm not going to be recording a show at 2:00. That's okay. That's okay. I appreciate it. Tip the show if you can. That would be greatly appreciated as well. I don't think we made it this week. I'm afraid to look at what we got. We probably didn't raise enough money, but that's okay. I love you guys anyway. That has been the show. You're the best. I love you guys. See you next Monday at noon for more of the High Noon Rant with me, Pugs Moran. A 2.5 hour. No, it's only 1.5. 1 hour and 45 minutes at best today. Stream of consciousness. And did you think when it started that it would end like this?